Shortly after my birthday, I found myself in the doctor's office after a handstand gone wrong. I had cartwheeled out of it and hit my foot hard against a door handle. I needed an x-ray to see if it was broken. I wasn't a gymnast, but I had recently discovered a joy in being upside down. Now, lest you think this is a cute childhood story, I was 30 years old, and the doctor's office is here in Kigali, where I was living. While the physical manifestation took time to realize, I've always loved turning things upside down, doing the unexpected. The title of this talk starts with flipping the paradigm. I've made a life out of it. The second half is bringing best-in-class technology to the marginalized. Because when you flip any paradigm, threads of consistency and a purpose are what make a positive impact. So what does flipping the paradigm actually mean? It's related to what you do with what you have, whether that's a career, a skill, a technology, or a business model. Taking something you have and using it in an unexpected way to upend assumptions and make an impact. Innovation is part of it, so is courage and timing and luck. It starts with taking a careful lens to what you have, no matter how small that or insignificant that might feel, and looking for opportunities. A caveat for privilege: flipping the paradigm is not reserved for the wealthy or educated, though it often helps. Identify your own privilege and use it to help lift up others. We can't change who we are, but we can make choices to maximize our unique traits to flip the paradigm for good. My years in Kigali came as the result of starting a financial services company for refugees and migrants, Leaf Global FinTech. Leaf eventually became a general-purpose digital wallet to help people in Africa safely store and transport their money across borders. It's blockchain-based and uses tokenized versions of local currency to ensure stability. When we started Leaf in 2018, the terms digital wallet and stablecoin didn't exist. People's only association of blockchain was Bitcoin. No one had ever offered the benefits of blockchain to people without smartphones. We were the first. I can't tell you how many people, mostly investors, told me what I was trying to do was impossible. My job as co-founder and CTO was to build a product that literally no one else had ever built before. I'll fast forward. 4 years later, Leaf was acquired by a US publicly traded company, IDT. Not only did we successfully build something that had never been built, but we did it for the people who usually receive new things last: refugees, small cross-border traders, the marginalized. We did it from Rwanda with an African team using unconventional methods for a tech company. We did it by only offering people a service that we would ourselves use. Now, skipping from the beginning to the end admittedly glosses over what makes the story interesting. While some stories are too fresh to tell, I can say as a founder that I endured many more down days than up. I put my life on hold for years and experienced direct trauma on top of the frequent discrimination that comes with being a woman in fintech. That's the real day-to-day of even a story that ends in success. So how exactly did the situation move from impossible to acquired? I believe my success came down to being willing to immerse my life in my business, to knowing it inside and out, and being able to communicate it effectively. Nobody else was going to make my dream happen. I gave my life to it. Though there's no magic path, many smart people have published reliable steps to help you create a solid business. With Leaf, we had so many innovative factors: new tech, new market, complex business model. So following a recipe for launching a company was the right move. We did the prescribed things, and by and large, they worked. It wasn't making a business model canvas early on that got my company acquired, but following standard practices brings order to the day-to-day chaos of any new venture. And so I'd say there's a lot of good advice out there. Follow it and trust your gut when your gut says no. Listen to the data, keep listening to the data, and be curious about everything. Spend time with your customers. Be willing to be uncomfortable. It's awkward and you'll feel like a failure. That's all part of the gig. And that's as much formal advice as you'll get from me today. I'd like to spend the rest of my time telling you about how I got to that decision to move to Kigali and what I've done since. You'll see how flipping the paradigm is a principle I apply both to my own career and what I do with the products I build. My resume doesn't start with a typical CTO degree. I have a bachelor's of music in harp performance and global health. But that training really did get me my first tech job over a decade ago in healthcare. Music and code are both symbolic languages and a mix of form and creativity. It makes sense. My employer went out on a limb to teach me to code on the job, flipping my own paradigm for what I thought was possible in my career. Now, to be very clear, life was hard while I learned. There were days that I thought I would never get good at it. It humbled me. But it also taught me some of the most valuable lessons of my career. 1, I can learn almost anything. 2, I can endure. 3, the best way to become an expert is to start at the very bottom. I ended up loving it. Years later, the next paradigm to flip was one that I held deeply, the all-important career ladder. I had worked my whole life to get a good, secure job, but I had a calling for more, so I stepped off the track. I left to work in HIV and reproductive care clinics in Tanzania. I had to unlearn and relearn to be effective. Everything seemed different than the way I was taught. I started by sweeping the floor. When I came back to the US, I had administered thousands of HIV tests, spoken in Swahili every day, and built a lab database for the best clinic in that area. I went back to my job in tech and began to get more creative in the products I was building, like creating clinical tools from financial data. After patenting that system, I knew I needed to get uncomfortable again to keep growing. I entered an MBA program, despite having never taken a business course in my life. LEAF came about during that time through a global case competition about the refugee crisis. And school's a great place to test new business environment, or a new environment to test business ideas if you can get the opportunity. I like to call myself the unlikely entrepreneur because when graduation rolled around, I surprised everyone, including myself, by going full-time with LEAF. I'm a details person and never saw myself launching a startup, but I promise you, there is a place in entrepreneurship for everyone. Another paradigm flipped. I spent the next 4 years building, fundraising, learning, and leading. I experienced the highest highs and the lowest lows, often within the same day. We weathered COVID, border closures, and massive changes in crypto and regulation. I joined IDT when they acquired LEAF, which is now Boss Money, and stayed with them for about 6 months before transitioning things over. I now continue my work bringing best-in-class technology to the marginalized at the Stellar Development Foundation, building blockchain-based products that help organizations to pay people efficiently around the world. Our mission is to create equitable access to the global financial system. My product, the Stellar Disbursement Platform, facilitates instant, cheap, accessible, and transparent bulk payments. It allows organizations to send money to recipients in a stable form, like digital dollars on the Stellar blockchain, that can be cashed out at hundreds of thousands of locations globally. UNHCR, the International Rescue Committee, and other humanitarian organizations use it to send cash assistance to displaced people on their phones. Payroll processors use it for payouts for gig workers and creators around the world, providing access to new financial tools. The part of my work I've always loved most is showing people what is possible when you question assumptions and apply assets creatively. I've seen over and over that people are people are people, no matter what labels may have been applied to them. The paradigm I've flipped most is that the marginalized don't deserve latest and greatest technology, or that they won't be able to use it if you give it to them. I've proved that wrong in multiple markets with multiple products. In providing access and following up on usage and quality, I've seen people move towards true financial inclusion, which underlies overall wellness and security in life. So ending on a meta note, I like to think of any given situation as having 5 to 6 levers that make up its DNA. You can define those in different ways: who, what, when, where, why, marketing, finance, operations, strategy, regulation, whatever. It gets interesting when you start to change one of those levers at a time. Apply the business model of a healthcare company to a different industry. Take a tool built in Latin America and see how it performs in Southeast Asia. Define your core values and strengths, and then apply them to something you've never done before. It's like a game. It doesn't always work, but it forces you to get creative. And so what would your world look like if you changed one lever? If you intentionally applied an asset of yours, a skill or system, to something unexpected? Could you solve a hard problem? Our world is 100, if not 1,000 times more complex than our grandparents. And complex problems demand nuanced solutions. If the solutions were easy, people would have thought of them already. The easy problems have already been solved. What the world needs now is critical, creative thinkers full of intellectual honesty and authentic leadership. So today, I challenge you to look at your life, maybe even upside down, and identify what levers you can change to shape the world for good by flipping the paradigm.